I spent many years prior to primary school living in a railway village with my mother's uncle, a bossiesdokter, on the banks of the Bergrivier. As a toddler, I knew to obey when told not to go to the river, as the mermaid was there and would catch me. It is believed that if children go too deep in the river, the mermaid would grab them with her hair and pull them underwater. So we were always on the lookout for white people's hair when in the river, even before we knew what white people looked like. During dry storms, we could hear her sad cries through the howling wind. I have a pretty good visual of her in my mind. My visual is no different to that of my elders and the ancestors. The mermaid sits on a rock, she combs her hair. People's relationships with water in the desert, like the Karoo and the Kalahari, is very different to those who live in places with easy access to water. The mermaid of Sierbra, called Kaiman, live around the Buffelsjag River, close to Swellendam. Daniel Cupido and his son, his mother, and a group of friends witnessed the sitting at the river. Cupido claims that she was glowing rainbow colors and her eyes were hypnotic. She was making strange sounds, and his mother said that she sounded sorrowful. As she became aware of them, she started splashing, dived back into the water, and swam away. It is believed that the giant snake lives at the bottom of the Ugrabi's waterfall. This legendary snake with hypnotic eyes, shimmering scales, and a huge mirror diamond in the front of his head cannot be outwitted. But if you do, it will bring you great abundance. The water snake instills fear over the entire Karoo and the Kalahari. Falling under its spell, you will be caught and dragged into a whirling pool of water. In October 1974, Oom Sakkie Kloete from the Richtersveld saw a huge black thing in the water in Fuelsdrift on the Orange River while washing himself. Although the thing was black, he first thought it was a tree trunk. When he saw its head, much bigger than that of a horse, he ran. Hetzi appears in many different forms, but more often than not as a snake. He is more often seen at the location close to Wondergat. Jeanette Abrams of Wilston saw Hetzi when she was a child at the farm school. She says that it was looking for a mate and it had transformed itself into a mermaid. Oom Johannes Willemse from Thiefontein near Beaufort West saw a long silver line in the water while he was washing without asking permission. Within a week, he claims, he started resembling a frog. His grandfather, an indigenous healer, advised him to sacrifice a chicken and rub himself with mud as an expression of remorse for not asking permission to use the water. On a very clear day, he went back to the river after the sacrifice. As he walked away, a cloud appeared above him and washed away the mud. And he turned back into the way he was before he used the river without permission. In February 2011, when it was announced that fracking for gas by Shell was planned, there were huge flash floods all over the Karoo. The water snake is very protective of the Karoo. Snakes are potent in many cultures. There's a strong belief that if the snake is threatened or disrespectful, destructive floods will soon follow. It is said that the way to escape and appease the snake is to pay homage by throwing flour bread, egg, or whatever you can, or even sweat at it. It is said that the water snake travels from place to place in the dust devil, but always stay close to humans. Europeans believe that our beliefs are somehow a corrupted manifestation of their mythological mermaids from ancient Egypt to even Disney's Ariel that infiltrated koi culture. European early seafarers believed that mermaids are mythical creatures who lure sailors into a watery death. The first time a European settler heard of the Karoo snake was in 1875, when an elderly son laborer spoke to him about the spirits that live under the water in Esseljaspoort near Oudtshoorn. This man spoke of the spirit that took the form of women and animals who grab passers-by and drown them in the watery abyss. Wherever you find water, you are very likely to find the water snake or the mermaid or both. In Meyringskloof, close to Prince Albert, it is believed that the 1996 floods washed the mermaid out to sea, but she was rescued and returned. She is called Iporia. It is believed that she often causes havoc on the roads to the waterfall unless she is revered by the locals. It is believed that she is still furious about the road that was cut through the impenetrable Swartberge in 1858, exposing the caves where the koi and the sun lived undisturbed for tens of thousands of years. This road was to make way for the European wool farmers to get to the coast. Most years there's just a trickle of water dripping gently through the gorge, but ever so often the trickle turns into a violent torrent, washing away everything made by the white man's hand. The wrath of the 1996 storm, dubbed the Big Flood, destroyed everything in its path, causing irreparable damage to the road, and a new one had to be constructed. It was believed that the mermaid also washed out to the sea at Mossel Bay and was taken to the C.P. Nell Museum. Deceptively, hearing of this, the curator, a Lionel Tate, decided to exhibit a doll with mermaid tail for the 2,000 plus visitors who traveled long distances to see the mermaid. As the new road came to completion, the mermaid struck again several times, washing away huge parts of the new road under construction. Things changed drastically after the settler brought their wind pumps, drawing water from deep underground. Droughts and occasional floods are a constant feature in these new terrains. During the floods of 1871 in Victoria West, a European settler bride drowned while trying on her wedding dress. Meanwhile, her whole wedding party was swept away and drowned. Indigenous Australians believe that there are freshwater and saltwater mermaids. Unlike the freshwater mermaids, the saltwater mermaids are more sacred and cannot be represented in artworks. They are mean and ugly and take many different forms. They were only visible under the moonlight and can be heard talking and crying. There are common traits in South African and that of the Native American and Australian mermaid stories. These water spirits, referred to as river people, live deep in river pools, mostly below waterfalls. They